Welcome, everyone. We're excited to share a closer look at how the Smart City Driver app supports snowplow operations. In this session, you'll see how the app makes it easier for drivers to stay connected, whether that's receiving assignments, tracking progress, or flagging issues as they happen. It's all about streamlining communication, keeping operations running smoothly, and making sure reporting is accurate during snow events. So, whether you're managing crews, or out on the road yourself, you'll get a sense of how this technology really works in practice. So now let's introduce today's panelists. Hello, I'm the voice you've been listening to. My name is Annalisa, and I've been with Routeware for about 3 years now, and I will be your moderator for the day. And next up is our speaker, the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Lidstone. Nick, feel free to take the mic and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Annalisa. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're so glad that you could join us. My name is Nicholas Lidstone, and I'm a technical account manager here at Routeware. A little bit about me. I spent about 10 years in the public works and municipal sector, and I joined Routeware about a year and a half ago. I live up in Canada near Niagara Falls, so I'm very familiar with snow and the impacts it has on operations. So I'm excited to talk to everyone today. I'll pass it back to Annalisa.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's take a quick look at today's agenda. We have already covered our housekeeping items. Following this slide, we will do a quick interactive poll to get your input. And first, we are starting from the beginning. We are covering logging in and logging out, as well as pre and post inspections. Next, Nicholas will show us the general map view, and that will navigate between all the basic settings. Then we are going to deep dive and learn about exceptions and city alerts and walk through menu options, aka that hamburger menu. And lastly, Nick will close this out with service confirmations. But that's not all. We will have a Q&A at the end to go over all your questions. And with that, over to you, Nick. Feel free to take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, let's get into it, everyone. Unfortunately, summer's coming to a close and we need to start prepping for the upcoming snow season. Therefore, I thought today's webinar would be a good opportunity for us to go over the Smart City Driver App experience from, a snowplow driver perspective. We'll walk through the experience and highlight tools and features that the drivers are going to use while they're out there on the road completing their work. Like Annalisa said, the session will be recorded and should serve as a good resource for your operations moving forward, and even a training tool for when new drivers come in, because I know drivers can, come in and out, before the season or during the snow season. So from a driver perspective, key benefit of the Smart City app is knowing, what I have plowed and what hasn't been plowed yet. Drivers within snow operations can change from season to season, or a driver could simply be driving a new area of the city they're not familiar with. So instead of the dangerous driving practice of a paper and a highlighter and recording the streets that you've gone down, Smart City Snow product is essentially a digital route map that will assist drivers in letting where I've gone and what needs to be plowed in the middle of a snow event. It answers that question of, wait, did I go down that street, or have I already plowed that neighborhood, or where am I going next? All those questions are going to be answered by using the Smart City Driver application. So with that said, everyone can stop looking at my face and I will share my screen and we will kind of dive right into the app. So I go off video here. I'll share my screen. And maybe Annalisa, could you just give me a thumbs up that you could, or a yes that you can see my screen? Perfect. Thank you very much. So today's webinar, I'm going to start from the very basics. So, I'm logged in on an Android tablet right now. So the Smart City application works on both Android and Apple devices, iOS devices. The all the functionality remains the same between the two platforms, but there are just some slight variation. So one, I've clicked on my Smart City application there. We're getting in to the Routeware Smart City application. One example is, when I start the Android device, it's a white background. On iOS, it's going to be a black background. So all the functionality will remain the same. So we'll start from the very beginning, and we want to log in. We're a driver at the start of our route. It's a snow event. We've got called in. We need to start plowing streets, and you start by simply typing in your name. So I'm going to type in my name. It'll start to populate with any of the names that are loaded into the system. Let's go with this Emily Short. I'm in a demo environment, so I'm going to see a lot more trucks than you're going to see, but you'll probably just have this snowplow option available to you. Then you'll select your applicable vehicle or start to type in your vehicle if it's a long vehicle list. So, I've got my SP101 vehicle that I'm going to log into. And then from here, I can then start to type in the route or select the route that I'm going to log into for the day. So you can see I've got 3 routes here. I could then select those routes and start my route for the day. It's going to load my app experience. But before I do that, I did want to show another option as well. So if I back up here, there's an option within the Smart City platform to actually pre-populate some of this information to make the login process a little bit easier for drivers when you're starting your route for the day. So I'm going to type in my name here, and then what you're going to see is the system's then pre-populated all the information for me. I'm the default driver for SP102. You can see up here, that's my snowplow. And then this is my default route that I'm usually assigned to, this St. Catharines Northwest route. So it's a good way to, default some of these routes and vehicles so drivers aren't having to type that information in every time they're going in. Now I'll call out kind of what's this pop-up screen in the middle here. So what this is showing you is in the Smart City application, it gives you the opportunity to select if you want to start a new running of the route. So within snowplow operations, you might be starting a brand new running of your route, or you might want to actually continue a previous running. So maybe I'm coming, midway through a snow event and I'm taking over for Annalisa's work earlier today. So I'm going to, continue on her route. So I'll show you what that looks like. If I click continue here, it's going to then give me a list of the previous runnings of that route and the completion percentage. So you can see, both of these, I'm in a demo environment, so they're at 0%. But if Annalisa was out plowing this morning, maybe she got to 50%. Maybe I want to continue her route there. So I could click on there, or at the bottom here, I could simply start a new route. I'm going to go back because I want to actually go into this route here, this Grapeview South, and that's the route we're going to be running today. So I'll click there, and then I'm going to click, start new. So you can see it's going to load me into the app experience. And the first thing that's going to pop up is my pre-trip inspection. So pre and post-trip inspections are configurable with the Smart City product. You can add, a number of items here to have drivers complete. And that's all set up in the backend portion. There's a desktop version of the Smart City application. But as a driver, I'm going to, go through my pre-trip inspection. I might be checking my mirrors. I might be checking my lights and my windshield washer fluid. Then I might be doing some interior checks. So, is my cab clean? And you can see it's automatically prompted my camera to come up. So I can take a photo of my desk here if I want. I can submit that photo as well, proving that my cab is clean, or my desk, I should say, is clean. And then I continue on my pre-trip inspection. I will call out anytime you see this little asterisk, this red asterisk, that's a required field. So I won't be able to pass my pre-trip inspection if I don't check that off. And then obviously if there was anything incorrect on my pre-trip, I could, mark it as red, and then I could add notes here if needed. So I could add notes, you can add photos, that's all configurable as well. But, for today's purposes, my wipers are operational. I can click next. And then we've kind of got a little micro summary of what's going on with that pre-trip. I'm in a snowplow vehicle. This is the date. This is how long it took me. So as a driver, your operations are going to be aware of how long you're taking for your pre-trip. So if you're just pencil whipping through it, you might want to take time and complete your pre-trip properly. And then you can just, sign here and be on your way. So we're going to sign our pre-trip, and then we're going to launch right into the app experience. So you can see right off the bat, we've got pulled up a map, and I'm going to kind of go through some basic layouts. So you can navigate, and what I can tell you is, I'm just using my fingers on my tablet to, pinch in or pinch outwards or pinch inwards to, move my screen around if I want to see the full details of the route I'm going to be plowing today. And I'll just call out some of the items that we're seeing on the screen. So one, you've got these blue lines. So the blue lines are the street segments we're going to be responsible for plowing. So these blue lines here, they're going to actually change color when I'm plowing them to determine if I've serviced them or not. And if I click on some of these lines, I can then see this. I clicked on that street segment or that line segment. I can see this is Vansicle Road. There's two passes required on that street, a forward pass and a reverse pass. And what that means is you can see there's two directions here, one line on either side of the road. So it's requiring that, that forward pass and what we call the reverse pass down the other side of the street. So that's the first thing you're seeing on the map here. A couple other items I want to call out, and we'll get into a little bit more detail on them later, is these megaphones. So these megaphones here are what we call in the smart city application are city alerts. So city alerts, I like to think of them as, it's our little version of Waze where you are a driver and you're approaching something and you want to be alerted that something is there. So if I was, this driver here, I'm this arrow, I'm driving down the street. As I approach this megaphone, I'm getting a pop-up on my screen that says, hey, there's a city alert there. And for this one, you can see at the top of the screen, it's a metal plate that I need to be aware of. And if I even wanted to see, I could click the images. Hey, look, there's a metal plate there I need to be aware of. Maybe I need to lift my plow. So it's going to give you an audio and visual alert that, something is there. And the cool thing about these city alerts is you can upload them in the back end. So from that desktop portal version, the back end users, maybe your route supervisor or your dispatchers can load them into the system, but you as a driver can also enter them as well. So I'll go into that process in a minute, but those are the city alerts. Another couple items you're going to see on the screen, I want to call it these dots. We've got these blue lines, but then you've got these dots here. So what do these dots mean? What these dots mean, they're what we like to call street jobs. So street jobs, they're ad hoc jobs within your route at a single point that are completely configurable to your operation. So when I'm going down this Coronation Boulevard, and when I get to this end, I'm going to again get a pop-up on my screen for this street alert that it says, hey, I've got an extra wide cul-de-sac. And maybe in my operation, that means I need to, plow the snow into a middle island. Maybe I need to, move it away from the boulevard. Maybe there's just some extra clearing that happens in that cul-de-sac. And then I can complete that job. So it's as simple as clicking on here to complete the job as a driver. If there was any notes associated with it, maybe something went wrong, I could document that here, or I can skip it. I don't need to. And same with the picture. So again, it's launched the camera here. I can take a photo, or I can simply, if there's nothing, that went wrong, I can just click skip and we can move on our merry way. So you can see that, change from that orange color to that green color, completing that street job. So that's most of the symbols that you're going to see on kind of the base map. A couple other things I wanted to call out was if you simply tap somewhere on the map, so anywhere that's not one of the symbols, it's going to bring up this kind of micro summary of your work for the day. So you can see this is the route I'm logged into. I've got 97 street segments that aren't serviced yet. I haven't been doing a very good job plowing. I've got no yellow segments, so they're partially completed, or I've got no green segments showing that they're fully completed. And again, that's the segment version. I can also flip over here and see all the street jobs associated with my route today. So gives you a nice little summary. Again, if you forget, it's just clicking on the map. There's another area within the application that I'll show later that will also highlight kind of where you can see that information. So, okay, we've covered the kind of main pieces here. Now I'm going to go around the board and cover some of the symbols in each of the corners. So I'll start down here in the bottom right-hand corner. First, you've got this resume button. So, I've moved my map over here. You can quickly hit resume. It's going to then bring me back to where I am. So that's that zoom button. It'll even disappear once you're kind of following along for, you're right on top of your icon where your truck is. Then we've got this megaphone. So briefly touched on it before, but these are our city alert features. So those city alerts, think of it as reporting something you want all drivers within the fleet to be aware of. So no matter what route I'm running, you can see some up here. You'll see city alerts within the system, and other drivers will be aware of them. So like I mentioned, these can be set up in the desktop version by a backend user, but you as a driver can also record these things. So examples might be accidents or metal plates or speed bumps, things that are applicable to a snowplow operation, and you want to be alerted to during your snow event. Now, some of them you want to be able to configure them to certain time frames. So, for example, a metal plate and a speed bump, you probably want those to live within the Smart City application and be visible to drivers throughout the duration of the winter, throughout the duration of the snow season. But an accident, if I'm a driver and I've reported that, it probably only has to live in the system for an hour or maybe a couple hours and then disappear. So you have that functionality within the Smart City application to set those times up within the back end of the system. But as a driver reporting a city alert, it's this easy. So we click on this city alert button down here in the bottom right hand corner, and we can see the city alerts that are available to us. We can report on accidents, metal plates, and speed bumps. So let's report on an accident. So we've got an accident. It's going to take me to my location. So what you can do now is I'm simply touching the screen and moving this pin to where it was. So maybe this accident was actually over here on Birdie Drive, and I've now pulled over to a safe location, but I want to report this accident. So, I've put the pin in the location that I want it. I hit save, and then it's going to ask me for some additional information. Maybe I got a photo of it. Maybe I was able to pull over to the side. Maybe I can include a photo. In this scenario, I'm not going to. I'm just going to hit skip. And then that's it. The city alert's been reported. Because I'm doing a demo, it's going to take, longer than usual, but at some point in the next couple minutes, we'll see one of those city alert megaphones pop up right here on Birdie Drive. So we'll check back in on that. And again, I just wanted to cover that, if we were approaching it, the driver, you're going to get an audio and visual alert that there's a city alert that you should be aware of. You can set it up. Your office administrators can set it up for, alert you at 50 yards or 75 yards or 100 yards, depending on whatever obstruction you're kind of reporting on. So that's the city alert feature, pretty key for snow operations. Now, I'll continue down here in some of the other buttons in the bottom right-hand corner. So we've got this second one, which is a refresh button. So that's simply, you shouldn't need to use it, but if you need to refresh your app, maybe you're driving along and some of the street segments didn't confirm, you can hit that refresh button if needed. And then over here, we've got a satellite toggle. So we can toggle between satellite view or not. That's a personal preference if you want to view it in that view. Then the bottom left-hand corner, this simply locks your map north. So I'm locked north now. When I'm driving around, it's only going to point me in the north direction. So those are kind of the simple buttons that you can use within the application. Now I'm going to go up here to the top right-hand corner, which is this triangle. So in the Android version, you've got this triangle with the exclamation mark. In the Apple version, it might be a yellow exclamation mark, but they function the exact same way. So these are what we call our exceptions. This is, something went wrong, but, I know that as a driver, you're going to drive your route, you're going to go out and service the entire route, and nothing's going to go wrong. You're going to plow all the streets. Everything's going to be fine, right? No, that's not usually what happens. Issues come up, and that's what we have this exceptions button for. It's for reporting those issues that you're coming across during your route. So something that you want to report to the back office, to your supervisors, to your dispatchers, that something went wrong. Maybe I'm going down Elderwood here and it's blocked. Oh, look at that. If everyone saw, my city alert popped up there. So that's the one I reported earlier. See, I've reported at 227. Approximate location is 30 Birdie Drive. So great. Love when that happens. So if you're driving down, back to my conversation about exceptions, we're driving down Elderwood here, and maybe I'm trying to turn on a birdie and it's blocked and I can't go down birdie. That's what an exception would be. It then reports live back into the back end of the desktop application to report that issue. And I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So let's report an exception. So we've gone, we hit that triangle in the top right hand corner, and these are the options that we have for reporting an exception. These can be set up by your administrator. You can, add items or reduce items. So we've got blocked, other, we've got, different truck, damage to private property. So let's use that one as an example. I'm plowing my route and oops, my plow hit a mailbox. So, I don't know why their mailbox is so close to the road. So, I'm an artist. So I drew a little mailbox. Oops, I hit that mailbox. Let's take a photo of it and we can submit that photo. And then we can add details as well to these exceptions. So let's say hit mailbox, at 123 Main Street. So you can skip this if you don't have any details to add. This is mail Bob, eh? So mailbox. So you can skip this if you want, but this is something you'll speak to your operations manager or supervisor about what level of detail they want when you're reporting these exceptions. So let's hit save here. It's then going to ask me, okay, like, did you get down that street? Did you plow that street? Did you service it or not? So then you can answer that question here. Maybe, if it's blocked, you might click no. In other scenarios, you might click yes. In the demo environment, I'm just going to click no because I don't want any of my street segments to confirm right now. So I'll click no. There we go. My exceptions reported. So we're not going to see any symbols on the map because I don't need other drivers to be aware that that happened. This is just for, my current running of that route. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you in real time. Everyone should be seeing something called our snow tracker. So this is the back end of everything that happens in the application feeds back here. So I'm going to refresh this and we should see right here, this is my name and this is the current route I'm running. We saw there was 97 street segments and it's in progress. I haven't completed it. I haven't been driving around, but I have reported an issue. So then basically in real time, you can see this issue I reported. It's approximately at that location. I know I added details for a different location, but I've reported that there was damage to private property. I can even see the damage. You can see my beautiful drawing there, and that's basically in live time or near real time, reporting back to the office an issue that happened out on your route, and it all feeds back into this back office here. So we're going to navigate back to our app here and we'll kind of continue around the board. So we've, started in the bottom right, we went over to the left, we went to the top right. Now we're going to go in this middle section here. So we've got plowing and not plowing. So it's an interesting toggle that we should talk about because plowing and not plowing, essentially what it means is plowing, you can also select it as salting if you want to. This means that as a driver, when I'm going down the street, if I'm going down Farmington Drive right here, if I'm in the plowing mode, it's going to confirm those street segments as complete. It's going to change them from, it's going to change them from blue to green, showing that I've completed driving down that street. And I'll show some videos later of what this looks like. But if I'm in not plowing, if I've switched it to not plowing, maybe I'm taking a break, or maybe I'm just set in this not plowing mode. When I'm driving down this street, if it's blue, it's not going to change. Nothing is going to happen because I'm not plowing or I'm not salting. They mean the same thing. So, and some examples we might want to use that not plowing is, let's say, again, I'll use my example here. I'm heading, down Farmington and something malfunctions with my plow. I was in plowing mode. I was doing a great job plowing the street. Something malfunctioned with my plow. I need to then lift it. I lifted my plow and I need to drive out of the neighborhood. I don't want any of these streets to confirm that I plowed them because my plow's not down. So I'd switch to not plowing, get out of the neighborhood so that when I return, when my plow's fixed, I'll know which areas I have and have not plowed. So good distinction there. You could also use another example with salt. You know, if you ran out of salt for some reason on your route and you needed to drive out of the neighborhood, you need to know kind of where to go back to. You could, switch it to not plowing. So that's that not plowing and plowing toggle up here. Moving along, we'll then go over to our hamburger menu. So we've got this three stacked lines here, and it makes me hungry when I think of it. So we're going to click into the hamburger menu and go through all these options. So at the very top, we've got my name. I've logged in, Nicholas Lidstone. We've got the route that I'm running. And then you can see this little kind of icon beside my route. And what that is, it's a route reset. This can be set up in the portal version, but essentially if you have access to this as a driver, what this means if I click it, it's going to then prompt me, hey, do you want to start a new running of your route? And I can start a brand new fresh route. It'll save the work I was previously working on, but it'll start a brand new route. And the application that might be used in is, if you're a contractor and the city is dictating when I'm plowing my routes, maybe I've plowed half of this route here, this bottom right-hand section, but then the city calls me and says, hey, you need to restart all the routes. You need to replow. So I would go up here as a driver. I might hit my reset. And then what you're going to see is it's going to say grapefruit, Grapeview South, and then it'll be an R, probably a 2, the second running of the route, third running of the route, depending on how many times you've done it throughout the day. It'll just show right there. So that's that route reset button. Kind of moving our way down, we've got, the vehicle, we've got the version number of the app. So that's this version here in the ID. So this version number is important if you're, ever troubleshooting and having issues with your app. If you're calling into our support team, they might ask you for the version number. That's the number they're looking for. Now we've got the route summary. That's the same as what we saw before. So that's this, by clicking on the map, you can access it. But, if you forget that you can click on the map, you can see it there. Quick summary of your route. Now we're going to get into navigating. So as a driver, there's a couple options for navigation. The top three here, to a street, to a salt filling station, to a truck yard, those all kind of operate the same. So I'll talk about those first. That's just, navigating to a specific site or a specific section of the street network, where if I click the salt station, it's going to be like, hey, where do you want to go? Okay, I want to go to the St. Catharines salt film. And I click submit. We're going to then get a turn-by-turn, experience in the app to my salt location, wherever it is, over there. So, we've got that turn-by-turn. I can follow along, fill up my salt, and navigate back to my route. So kind of works the same for, those three, going to a street, going to a salting station or chemical station, and then to a truck yard. Now we'll talk about sequence route. So I'll take a little step back here and say, as a driver, if I've been a driver in St. Catharines, which is my test city for 10 years, I know my routes. I know my streets. I know how many passes I need to make on each street to plow it. Maybe I don't need turn-by-turn direction through my route. If that's the case, I can, log into my Smart City app. I can, put it in its docking station within the cab of my truck, and I can just drive. I can just drive, service the street, watch these streets turn from blue to green, and, complete my route for the day and then go home. Now, if I'm a driver that maybe doesn't know my route or is new to the operation, that's when you want to probably use this sequence route option, which is going to take me on a turn-by-turn experience all the way through every street segment on my route. So that nothing's missed. I complete all the segments. I complete the number of passes on each road that I need to go down. So that's the sequence route. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like. It's in the demo environment. So if I go to beginning of the route, what it would do is take me on a turn-by-turn experience to the start of the route. But then what you're going to see is this sort of information. So if I zoom in here, you can see those arrows directing me which way to go. So if I started here, you kind of work down this way. It would then give you, the system then gives you an audio alert to, take a right on Birdie, We go up here, take a right on Michelle, turn back around, come back down. So it's going to take you on that turn by turn experience. And I'll show a couple videos later to kind of demonstrate what it's actually looking like. It's just because I'm not driving around actively. So that's what it's going to do with that turn by turn direction, is navigate you all the way through your route. Okay, so we've done the navigate to city alerts. Again, it's just another section in the system where it's letting you report a city alert if you want. It's the same as hitting the megaphone down here, or you can view all the city alerts in a list or even on a map if you need to. So that's in there. Then you've got material ticket. So within your operation, if you need to, you went to the salting station, here's my scale ticket. I've taken a photo of it. We can submit that. Then we can, type in the information of the ticket. This may or may not be available to you, depending on what your operation wants to do. But if you want to track how much salt your crews are using, you can track it this way. So they would simply fill out the information here, hit submit, and then if we go back to, again, our kind of desktop version, I hit refresh, it's going to then, we see this little ticket down here. So that's the ticket I just logged. So here's, I went to the salt dome, I grabbed 2 tons of salt, and here's my lovely little sticky note scale ticket. All right, we're making our way down. The next 2 items, we've got route assist and switch routes. So first I'll talk about route assist. What this does is if Annalisa was, in here plowing, she's working on this left-hand side of the screen, she's been plowing. I'm done my route, and now my supervisor tells me to go hop into Annalisa's route and help her out. I would go to route assist a route. I'd select the route from this list. There'll probably be a number of items down here because you've got lots of drivers working. I'd select that list, and then it would take me into her running of that route. I would see all these sections that she's plowed in green, and then I could, start from this section if it was blue, and we would both be able to see the service confirmations. These lines change from blue to green as we work kind of to the middle to the map together. So you can have a couple drivers, you can have 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers all converge onto one route and complete that work. So that's the route assist feature. Within here, you can also request assistance. So speak with your operations supervisor if that's something you should be, utilizing. You can also view all the routes that are currently being run by other trucks right here. Now, a little bit different from that is switch routes. So switch routes is I'm not going to help Annalisa. I've got 2 routes that I'm assigned to. I'm done my Grapeview South route, and now I've got to go to Grapeview North. I could click here, and then I could click into Grapeview North, and then it'll switch me over to that route. A new route will load up, and I'll see brand new street segments. It'll be this area here that I'm responsible for, and I can go in and service that area. Okay, the last couple things on the menu here, we've got vehicle inspection. So back to when we completed our pre-trip, we can view previous inspections. So maybe we're pulled over by DOT, or maybe our supervisor wants to see our pre-trip. We can then, go in here. I can select any of the previous pre or post trips. Here's the one that I just completed. There's my great signature. And here's, the items that I checked off. You can even check here and see, there's that photo of my desk that I took. So that's a pre-trip. From here, you can also start your post-trip. If you want to access it from here on the menu, you can. You'll also be prompted to do it if it's set up in your system when you go to log out from the system. I'll show you that in a second. Then we've got menu, or sorry, messages. So there's a messaging feature between the back office and drivers. To be clear, it's not between driver to driver, so you can't message your friends if you got other friends that are plowing. But if I wanted to send a message as the back office, I could then, select my driver and say, go to north next. And we can send that over. Again, it's like a demo, so we'll see how long it takes it to send over, but it should, come to me in near real time. and we'll get a pop-up and I'll have the opportunity to reply to that message or acknowledge that message when it pops up. But as we wait for that, I'll just kind of go into the last little section, which is the settings. So a couple little things you can configure as a driver. There's some language settings. So if you prefer Spanish, French, German, English from the UK or the US, you can select those items here and it'll change everything on the app experience to those languages. You can also, provide feedback, and there's a form where you can, enter in any comments you have that will be sent back to Routeware and Smart Cities. You can unregister a device or get device info. So this is, more if you're having support issues. And then great, look, there's my message that popped up. So, I could acknowledge it and click OK, or I can reply back to the office if I need to. So then the final one, it's just a map view. There's a couple configurations. You can make a thick or a thin line and have like the map resume your current location. So it's just a couple settings that you can toggle if you're a driver. And that's kind of the driver app experience in a nutshell. I'm going to log out here and show you that, process from start to finish, but then we'll actually show you some examples. I've got a couple of videos queued up that I can show. So I've clicked log out, do I want to log out or do I want to return to one of these other routes that I was maybe, running? So let's click log out. Okay, I've got to do I want to do my post-trip inspection? Yes. And then, I'm just in a demo. So there's a couple items here. I've done my preventative maintenance. My cab is clean, spotless, and, I've filled it up with fuel. And here we go, sign it away, and I'm done. I'm done for the day. I can go home and I've effectively logged out of the app experience. So now that we have a good understanding of the app experience, I want to, and kind of what each button does, I'd like to show you a couple examples of what I'm talking about and kind of the service confirmation models we have. So let me just pull up a couple other things here. So we've got a video here that pulled up. So this is showing, this Huntington lane has two pass count requirements, one in this forward direction, one in the reverse direction. And if I just play the video, you can see, as I'm driving down the street, I'm getting those service confirmations based on these small street segments that I'm clearing. So, it's telling me how much of Huntington Lane I need to service. So that's kind of the experience when you're driving. I'll call out that this video is actually on an iPhone, so you can see a couple little different things down here. It's almost hidden, but there's the city alerts. All the same buttons are there. There's the exceptions button, just a little bit different experience. So this is for a street that has, two pass count requirements, one forward, one reverse. But if you were servicing a street that had one pass count requirement, and I'll pull that up, it's only going to show you one line. So I've actually switched it in the back end. Your administrator has the option to choose between a moderate and a simple and a complex kind of service verification. And with the simple one, what it does is it doesn't matter what this first street length, how many passes. Maybe it takes 5 to complete full plowing of the street. But if I've put it to simple, it means I don't care which way you're going down the street. You only have to do one pass down the street, and it's going to change it from blue to green. So you can see I've got the one pass count. It's changing those streets to the correct color, to the service color. So that's the simple driver experience. Got a couple more things to show. This one here, drag it over so everyone can see. So you've got a side-by-side here of what we like to call our simple driver mode or simple driver experience. For there's a toggle that is really important to understand as a driver, because on the right-hand side, if you're toggled on, I'm going to see it just like I showed you. You've got blue for not serviced, yellow for partially serviced, and green for serviced. So, we're going to plow our streets and turn them all green. Now, on the left-hand side, it's a little bit more complex. And what this is showing, it's actually based on a time requirement. So the different colors, which can be set up by your administrator, represent the last time that street segment was plowed. So I'll show you what that looks like here. If you navigate to here within your, and this would be your administrator, but I'm just talking about it for driver experience. What the different colors would mean is, in the last 4 hours, if it's this green color, that means that street segment's been plowed. 4 to 8 hours, it's going to be this hour, this color. 8 to 16, it's going to be this yellow color, and so on. So it's giving the driver kind of a different experience depending on your operation. You might want to use this depending on the snow events you're having. So I just wanted to kind of show that as an example. So that's this. It's called simple driver experience. Couple more. I know we're getting closer to time, and I want to make some time for questions, but I wanted to show a couple of videos of what it looks like with the navigation. So this navigation is taking me to the start of my route, and I'll just let the video play. And what you'll see is when I'm approaching the start of my route, it's going to say, okay, you've arrived. You're now going to begin your route navigation. And what this does is it seamlessly transitions to what is our route navigation, and you can kind of get to following those blue lines, and I'll show you an example of what that looks like in a second here as well. So you can see it's showing me I'm off my travel path, and that's what this next video is going to show. So if I'm following my turn-by-turn instructions, and here's my turn-by-turn, I'm supposed to take a right on Vansicle Road and follow this blue line. I took a left, I took a left, and you'll start to see this blue line form. That's kind of connecting my position to where I left the turn-by-turn navigation. And you can see this popped up here. I'll pause. That top section popped up to say, hey, you're no longer following the turn-by-turn. You're now off your travel path. And if I scoot forward here, I get into a parking lot, and then I hit that button, return to path. I can then choose to, return to where I left off or a different part on the map. So what that's going to do is it's going to take me either to turn-by-turn directions back to the start of my map, or, I could simply follow that little blue line back to where I left off. And you'll see in a second, this off my travel path is going to disappear. And then we're going to be back to that turn navigation. So we'll give it a second. Then once we get to this blue line, it's going to kick me back into kind of the navigation experience, and it'll tell me my next instruction. Okay, great. Next is take a left on Tuscany Court. Perfect. We'll kind of keep moving along that way. Last couple things I wanted to show. I mentioned one of the settings was thin versus thick. So as a driver, if you have a preference, on the left here, see this blue line is thicker. On the right here, it's thinner. So that's in the settings. You can change that. I personally like the thin one because you can see a little bit more of the green or blue underneath. So that's an option to configure. Within the navigation, there is also dark mode. So if I clicked on this little button here within the navigation, I could switch to this dark mode. And one other button I didn't call out during our instructions because I wasn't, in the navigation is this fast forwardy looking button here. And if I was to click that fast forward, essentially it's going to say, hey, you want to skip one of the streets. You want to skip one of the next sections. And it'll ask you, hey, where do you want to skip to? And that's what that fast forward button is for. And then two more little screenshots I'll show. One, here's your city alerts. So when I'm driving down Elderwood, I approach a city alert. I've got a metal plate. Boom, this is going to pop up on my app, and I can see, hey, great. Okay, I know there's a plate here. Perfect. I'll click the red X, make it go away. Or maybe I want a couple more details, and I can click this and I can see the photo or whatnot. And then the final video I wanted to show was what it looks like for that plowing and not plowing toggle at the top. So you can see I'm in not plowing. I'm driving down this road. I'm not plowing. None of the street segments are confirming, right? So I then just speed this up. I, make a funky turn in this driveway, come back down. And what you'll see is I then switch it to plowing. And now when I'm going back down the other side of the street, I'm getting those service confirmations. So it's a good distinction. If you're a driver and you're wondering why your segments aren't confirming, it's probably good to check that plowing, not plowing. So That's what I wanted to cover today. I think I kind of threw a lot of information at everyone for the smart city application and the snow application and how you use it. But now I can kind of pass it back to Annalisa and we can kind of open it up to any questions people have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicholas. This was super helpful. I know that I learned a lot and I love to be included in the examples. I felt like I and you tag team a lot of these snowplow routes. So I feel like I accomplished so much today. So
There you
thank you.
go. Yeah.
All right. I see a few questions in the chat and in the Q&A. We'll definitely get to those. So let's see. The first question I see is, can I navigate to other apps on my phone while working?
Good question. No is the answer. So how the application works, it's kind of you just log in and leave it open, and that's what we call the foreground of the app. The app needs to be currently visible on your screen. You can, turn down the brightness as much as you want, but it needs to be up and running for you to get those proper service confirmations. So, don't go to another app, don't go to YouTube or Instagram, or if you do it on your break and then switch back to the proper application.
Perfect. Good to know. All right. The next question I have is, does JD Link integrate to Routeware? And then a little bit of background on that question is
Mhm.
from Israel in the Q&A. We have a few John Deere road graders utilizing JD Link. We had to purchase a GPS device from Geotab for the public-facing side, but would rather use something already integrated into our system.
I'll have to get back to you on that. We can record that question. I'm not actually sure. My initial thought is no. But Annalisa, you'll have the questions and we can kind of jot them down and I'll get back to Israel on with an answer to that.
Yep, that sounds good. Israel, I should already have your email somewhere in the ether, so we'll definitely get back to you. Thank you for your question. Okay, now for some questions in the chat. I have a question from Scott. Can you tie your program to sensors that detect when the plow is up or down? Can you connect the two sensors to, sorry, can you connect two sensors to your spreaders that will help when you are spreading and how much?
Yeah, so currently, yeah, we don't tie into any of the spreaders or plow up or plow down sensor because we're kind of a hardware light solution. We just want drivers to be able to, quickly log in and almost like set it and forget it. And if they need that turn by turn experience, but we're not tracking like, how much salt is being put down per mile and what like that. So you'd need another solution for that. It doesn't tie into the smart fit city application. Yeah, good question though. I've had it before. Yeah, it's just not something we track in smart cities.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I see a few more questions in the chat, and that's awesome. Feel free to keep them coming, but I do want to be mindful of time. We are at the 58 mark, and if you have to hop off in 2 minutes, then that is totally okay. But if you are able to, or this webinar is being recorded, if you have a question here, we'll answer it live, and then you'll get a recording of the session and the Q&A session. So again, if you have to hop off and you're not going to be able to hear your answer live, then that's totally fine. We'll send you a recording. And then after the Q&A, we have a few announcements. So again, if you can, we have a little bit more announcements after the Q&A session, but if you have to hop off, feel free. So anyways, back to our question. The next question is the GPS accurate enough to distinguish completion of one lane versus the other lane of the same street?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's within the smart city application, all of your street and everyone should still be able to see my screen. What you can do is for your streets, you'll have multiple pass count requirements for each street, and you can have, five if you wanted, if it was a larger highway or something like that. And the system will know based on the direction, the speed, and the heading of the truck that it's plowing that direction of the lane. And then again, it'll mark it from kind of not service to partially service, that yellow color, to then green to being completely serviced. So yeah, it can distinguish between, one lane versus the other side of the street. But having said that, you could also set it up so you don't want that distinction. There's kind of both options. We have some operations that I work with where they set their routes for plowing, but then when they're only doing salting, they set it to what we call a simple driver experience, where it doesn't kind of account for the direction of travel. It just wants to know a truck went down that street because they're only making one pass as opposed to maybe three passes that would be required for a plow. So hope that answers your question.
No, that was great. Thank you. All right. Next question is, are there breadcrumbs to track the vehicles?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll kind of go in here and show you. So if we're looking at that, I wasn't moving around, but I think I ran some routes this day. Okay, perfect. So I'm on my route tracker. This was a running of a test route I ran on the 25th. Um, I can, load the segments I want to see. Uh, as I get to answer your breadcrumb question, I want to show you something else as well, is if it's the system's still going to record the number of passes you're making, even if that pass count requirement has been met. So you can see this Vansicle Road here has two passes, a forward pass and a reverse pass, and it's this section of road here. But you can see it's recorded four passes on that street. And if I hover over this icon here, you can see these are all the times that I went down that street, that section of the street during my plowing. And furthermore, to answer your question, I want to see the breadcrumbs associated with that. So I can then go into here, I can scroll down and I can show my vehicle tracking, hit apply. And if I zoom back in, here's all the breadcrumbs for where my vehicle went. This is that street I was looking at, this Vansicle Road. And you can then track and say, okay, great. Here's the timestamp of the breadcrumb. The app was in the foreground, that's what I'm talking about, and we're going 11 miles per hour. So you can then see the four distinct times we passed down that street.
Very cool. Thank you. Another question I see, if you had a vehicle breakdown mid-shift, would it go through the pre-trip breakdown for a new truck? Or who loads routes and decides how many passes is required for each street? Can passes be adjusted for different amounts of snowfall? Hopefully that wasn't too many questions in one.
Yeah, I'm looking at them here. So, first one, if you had a vehicle breakdown mid-shift, would it go through the pre-trip breakdown for a new truck? So if it was a new truck that was being logged into, they would then have to complete a pre-trip. The pre-trip is tied to the truck. So if they're logging in, if that truck broke down and they hopped into another truck, when they're on that login screen, they're going to be prompted for a pre-trip if that truck hasn't already completed one today. Um, who loads routes and decides how many passes are required for each street? You do. So the customer, you'll work with our data team and upload all the information. We'll get your street network. We'll determine how many passes are required for each street. And then we'll load that into the system. And then you can change it at any time to, can it be adjusted for different amounts of snow? You could adjust it, if you wanted to for different amounts of snow. It'd be a big lift because, it's a lot of street segments. But if what you could kind of do to get around that for different amounts of snow, you could use that route reset feature to be like, okay, a heavy event requires multiple runnings of this one route. So then you could just have your drivers, continuously service a route during a heavy snow event.
Great. Thank you. Okay. And I'll just speak through the next question right after that. What if the driver forgets to toggle back and forth from plowing? Is there a way to manually mark the route complete? These are such good questions.
Yeah, great questions. You can manually mark the route complete on the back end. So if we were in the portal experience, where's my tab here? You can manually mark it as complete if you wanted to. It's still not going to show you, the percentage of completion because it's looking for the service confirmations that are coming from the app. But you can still mark it as complete, yes. And I'm hoping the drivers, they would actually notice that it wasn't in plowing mode. And I'm just going to whip through this so I can show you. Because if the app is up, in which it should be up and running when they're running their operations, if it's in not plowing mode, they're going to notice that their whole route is blue. So they want it to be green. So hopefully they notice after a short amount of time that it's nothing's being changed to green, and then they can flip it back. You might miss a couple confirmations, but you can flip it back. Good question though. Very, very good question.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I see one more question back in the Q&A, and then we can start wrapping up. And that last question is, can we expect a public-facing portal in the future?
Public facing portal. Um, it's something that we're talking about and discussing. It's something I can take back to our product team and have discussions about it. Because specifically with cities, I know it's important to get information out to your residents on, when streets have been plowed. It's always a give and take of how much information you want to provide, but I've heard it before. So yeah, not currently available. There are some kind of tie-ins you can do, but yeah, it's not currently offered right through the Smart City platform.
Perfect. Well, those are all the questions I see. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. And thank you, especially Nicholas, for your guidance on snow removal. Again, a very timely subject as we begin to roll into those winter months. Nicholas, if you had any last concluding thoughts, feel free to share. Otherwise, we can.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for attending, everyone. Appreciate the questions. That's awesome. That means people are engaged and wanting. It's a great tool. I think it's growing in popularity, and it's so important to give your drivers the tools and equipment to make sure they're servicing their city or municipality properly. So thanks.
By now, if you haven't already heard, this year, next month actually, we are hosting Routeware Summit 2025 taking place in Austin, Texas from Monday, October 27th through Wednesday, October 29th. And here is the registration link. I will throw this into the chat right now. So mark your calendars. Routeware Summit 2025 will be jam-packed with hands-on learning, exciting announcements, and networking opportunities. So registration is currently open, but spots are filling up fast. And as always, if you have any questions or need additional support, definitely don't hesitate to ask or reach out or visit our help center. So we really appreciate your continued partnership and look forward to connecting with you at future webinars, or better yet, at the Routeware Summit next month in October. Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you for staying on a little bit later. I really appreciate it. And take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.